Brought to you by Penguin.
Queer Georgians, written and read by me, Anthony Delaney. Author's note. The period explored in this book, 1714 to 1837, is foreshadowed by the introduction of the Marriage Duty Act, 1695, which imposed punitive measures on bachelors who did not wish to, or could not, marry. It incorporates the continuation of the Buggery Act, 1533, which sought to punish all sex acts beyond the procreative, but particularly targeted men who had sex with other men. This period also includes other pivotal moments in the history of gender and sexuality, such as the raid on Margaret Clapp's Molly House, 1726, the introduction of Hardwicke's Marriage Act, 1753, and the raid at the White Swan on Vere Street, 1810, a proto-gay bar. This book, therefore, looks at a time of significant heteroregulation in Britain and beyond. I coined the term heteroregulation in its current context while writing my PhD, to be used as an alternative to heteronormative. I reject the linguistic implication that there is a normal heterosexuality, counter to which others might be judged abnormal and legislated against accordingly. There is nothing normal about the heteronormative. Indeed, the term heterosexual once implied an abnormal or perverted appetite towards the opposite sex, or a morbid sexual passion for one of the opposite sex. Instead, heteroregulated better describes the deliberate social, cultural, and legislative acts that were calculated to control and admonish minority groups across several centuries. That regulation continues today. In its determined opposition to this regulation, Queer Georgians is queer in focus and broadly adheres to the scholar Eve Kosofsky-Sedgwick's use of the term in Tendencies, 1993. She argued that queer history is the open mesh of possibilities, gaps, overlaps, dissonances and resonances, lapses and excesses of meaning when the constituent elements of anyone's gender, of anyone's sexuality, aren't made, or can't be made, to signify monolithically. There will be some who argue that applying the word queer to the past is anachronistic. It is, but that's how historians communicate their findings. The word family does not mean the exact same thing now as it did in the 17th and 18th centuries, but experts talk freely about the history of the 18th century family. I hear no objection when historians write about heterosexual men in the 17th century. Heterosexuality is seen as the normative positioning, an identity that needs no definition. Meanwhile, historians of gender and sexuality are tying themselves in knots trying to define and justify their use of the word queer. If we readily accept these anachronistic tendencies because they are the easiest way in which we might discuss a specific experience or idea in the past, then we must grant the same grace to the study of queer lives. That said, beyond queer, I have largely refrained from applying modern identity categories to the histories that follow. Indeed, I suggest it is heteroregulation, not queerness, that has seen the formalization of various gender non-conforming identity categories in our own time. Once rigidly categorized, identity markers can be used to fracture and divide so that the most vulnerable amongst us might be more stringently regulated. The Georgians had no need for such categories and markers, however, and so they are largely dispensed with here. In a similar vein, I refer to my protagonists throughout using the pronouns they used for themselves. Sometimes, tantalizingly, this changed depending on the day. The Chevalier Deon, for instance, refers to herself as she approximately 55% of the time, and he 45% of the time. I have followed his example. Throughout this book, you will encounter words and descriptions of people in the 18th and 19th centuries that sit uncomfortably with modern sensibilities. They are included here, however, as a marker of the time in which they were written or said. Modern monetary values are provided alongside their 18th and 19th century equivalents to give an indication.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?